There is an art to not caring, not in the sense of apathy or laziness, but in the sense of supreme emotional control. Niccolo Machiavelli, the ruthless observer of power and human nature, understood something that most people never will. Emotions are tools, not masters. The person who feels too much is easy to manipulate. The one who reacts is easy to predict. But the one who feels deeply yet never shows it, that is the person everyone fears. To be untouchable in this world, you must learn to move through chaos with cold composure, to see without reacting, to hear without being disturbed, to act without needing validation. This is the cold art of not caring, and it is the path to power, peace, and emotional sovereignty. 1. Emotional control is power. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must learn how not to be good." Many mistake this for an endorsement of cruelty, but what he truly meant was that power requires emotional detachment. The world teaches you to be ruled by feelings, to act from anger, to speak from pride, to move from fear. But Machiavelli understood that emotions are the easiest doorway into manipulation. A man who cannot command his emotions cannot command his life. Every outburst, every reaction, every moment of emotional surrender gives away a piece of your control. You may believe your anger shows strength, but it only reveals your triggers. You may think your kindness earns love, but it often invites exploitation. The world watches how you respond, and once it learns your weaknesses, it never forgets them. The powerful, therefore, practice restraint not because they feel nothing, but because they have learned to channel everything. Anger becomes fuel for discipline, sadness becomes reflection, fear becomes caution. The Machiavellian transforms every emotion into strategy. He knows that the moment he shows how deeply something affects him, he gives others the ability to use it against him. So he cultivates a mask of calm, not of emptiness, but of mastery. Behind that stillness, he is calculating, observing, adapting. He waits until emotion cools into clarity, and only then does he act. That patience makes him unstoppable, because while others drown in their reactions, he is already shaping outcomes. To most people, calmness looks like indifference, but to the Machiavellian, calmness is a weapon. It is the ability to remain composed when chaos erupts, to maintain order in the mind when everything external collapses. Imagine two men faced with betrayal. One explodes in fury, cursing the traitor and revealing his pain. The other stays silent, eyes steady, emotions hidden. Which one is more dangerous? The calm one, because no one knows what he's thinking, and unpredictability is power. The emotional man plays checkers. The calm man plays chess. One reacts, the other strategizes. One is driven by feelings, the other drives outcomes. This is the essence of emotional control. Not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. When you master your emotions, you stop fighting battles for ego and start choosing battles that matter. You stop acting to prove something and begin acting to achieve something. You no longer need to shout, to argue, or to convince anyone of your strength. Your composure itself becomes proof. People start to wonder what keeps you so steady, so unmoved, so deliberate, and that curiosity alone commands respect. True strength is not loud or aggressive. It is the quiet dominance of a mind that no longer dances to the rhythm of emotion. It is the serenity of knowing that nothing outside you can dictate what happens inside you. That, as Machiavelli understood, is not just power, it is freedom. 2. The death of validation. One of the most dangerous addictions in human life is not to pleasure, money, or power, but to validation. The craving to be liked, approved, and admired quietly governs the lives of most people. It dictates what they wear, what they say, and even what they believe. Machiavelli understood this weakness with chilling precision. He observed that even rulers, men crowned with power, often became slaves to public opinion. They wanted to be loved more than they wanted to be effective. And in that desire, they became predictable, hesitant, and manipulatable. The man who constantly seeks to please will always compromise his integrity for approval. He will bend his will to the mood of the masses, forgetting that the crowd's loyalty lasts only as long as its comfort. Machiavelli taught that a ruler, and indeed any individual seeking true strength, must become immune to the fluctuating opinions of others. He must recognize that human praise is unstable. It changes with convenience, it turns with emotion, and it disappears with time. Today they celebrate you, tomorrow they despise you. Those who live for validation are like leaves in the wind, carried wherever others blow them. The Machiavellian, however, plants himself like a rooted tree. He does not chase applause, for he knows it is hollow. Instead, he finds satisfaction in inner certainty, in knowing that his decisions are guided by reason, not by the need to be admired. The applause of the crowd cannot compare to the quiet approval of his own mind. To kill the need for validation is to reclaim your freedom. Once you stop chasing approval, you move through the world differently. You speak less, but with more conviction. You act more decisively because you no longer ask permission to be yourself. You start to realize how much energy you once wasted on managing other people's perceptions. That energy, once redirected inward, becomes power, the power of self-direction, self-approval, and self-belief. The opinions of others become background noise, irrelevant to your mission. You no longer feel the need to explain your motives or justify your silence. You simply act and let the results speak. The fewer people you try to impress, the more powerful you become. The man who can walk alone without anxiety, who can stand in silence without needing validation, becomes unshakable. The mob cannot control him because he does not depend on it. He does not crumble under criticism, nor does he inflate under praise. He moves through both as if through mist, untouchable, steady, calm. Machiavelli knew that this independence is what separates rulers from the ruled. Those who crave validation are controlled by others. Those who are indifferent to it control themselves. And in the end, self-control is the only form of control that truly lasts. When you no longer care to be liked, you begin to be respected. When you no longer seek to fit in, you begin to stand out. The crowd will never understand such strength because they cannot imagine living without their applause.
3. Detachment is a weapon. To Machiavelli, detachment was not the absence of emotion, it was the mastery of perspective. He believed that those who are too close to the chaos of life lose their ability to see it clearly. Emotion clouds reason, and reason is the foundation of strategy. Detachment, therefore, is not emotional coldness, it is tactical distance. It is the ability to observe without being consumed, to analyze without being blinded by hope or fear. Machiavelli advised rulers to see the world not as they wished it to be, but as it truly is, raw, imperfect, and governed by self-interest. The one who clings to illusions suffers endlessly. The one who sees clearly rules silently. Detachment sharpens the mind like a blade. It cuts through the illusions that most people call truth. Picture two generals on the battlefield. One is inflamed by pride, eager to avenge an insult, ready to charge without calculation. The other watches quietly, studying the terrain, the enemy's movements, the weaknesses hidden in their formation. The emotional general acts out of passion. He wants victory now, even if it costs everything. The detached general acts from reason. He wants victory only when the odds are certain. The first loses his army in chaos. The second wins through patience. The same principle applies to every battle in life. The person ruled by emotion reacts too soon, speaks too fast, and exposes too much. The detached person waits. He lets others show their hands first. He lets their reactions reveal their weaknesses. Then, when the time is right, he moves, precisely, decisively, without hesitation. Detachment allows you to see what others cannot. When you are no longer reactive, you begin to notice patterns, people's hidden motives, the quiet shifts in loyalty, the subtle lies beneath flattery. You begin to read the world like a strategist, not a dreamer. And that awareness grants you an advantage that emotion will always destroy. The detached mind does not take insults personally. It interprets them strategically. It does not cling to losses. It studies them for insight. It does not chase affection. It observes behavior. Every emotion that once owned you becomes a message instead of a master. You learn to act from logic, not impulse, and in doing so, you remove your opponent's greatest weapon, your own reaction. Detachment is not about killing your heart. It is about protecting it with intellect. It is the quiet shield that keeps you steady in a world addicted to overreaction. Most people confuse feeling deeply with living fully. But Machiavelli knew that those who feel too much suffer too much. The detached person does not live without emotion, he simply refuses to drown in it. His calmness is not apathy, but focus, the unwavering awareness that emotion, when unchecked, is a liability. When you cultivate detachment, you become like the calm eye of the storm, motionless at the center while everything around you spins. That is not weakness, that is control. And in a world where everyone is reacting, the one who can remain still has already won.
4. The danger of emotional transparency. Machiavelli understood a timeless truth about human nature, that the moment people can read you, they can rule you. To him, emotional transparency was not honesty, it was exposure. Every time you reveal what moves you, frightens you, or pleases you, you hand others the keys to your inner world. When you show anger, they learn how to provoke you. When you display sadness, they discover how to wound you. When you express desire, they see how to manipulate you. This is how the emotional person becomes a puppet in a world full of players. The Machiavellian, on the other hand, builds a fortress around his emotions. He shows only what he chooses to show and nothing more. His calm becomes armor. His composure becomes a form of psychological warfare. To be emotionally unreadable is not to be lifeless, it is to be untraceable. The truly powerful cultivate an aura of mystery that keeps others guessing. Their silence creates discomfort because people cannot predict them. Their stillness demands attention because others project their own fears and fantasies into the void of their expression. Machiavelli wrote that men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, meaning that appearance shapes perception more than truth. When you appear calm, unbothered, and opaque, people assume strength even when you are uncertain. When you appear emotional and reactive, people assume weakness even when you are capable. The secret of influence, therefore, lies not in revealing yourself, but in concealing yourself with precision. Emotional transparency invites intrusion. The more you share, the more people think they know you. And what people believe they know, they begin to control. They start to test your limits, manipulate your sympathies, and play with your reactions. Transparency may feel liberating in moments of connection, but it is dangerous in a world driven by self-interest.
The Machiavellian mind knows that information is currency, and emotions are the most valuable information of all. To guard your emotions is to guard your leverage. When others can't read your motives, they can't predict your moves. They are forced to approach you with caution, to second-guess their strategies, to respect the uncertainty that surrounds you. Machiavelli famously observed that it is better to be feared than loved, because fear is grounded in respect, while love is grounded in familiarity. The more familiar you become, the easier it is for others to underestimate you, to take you for granted, or to manipulate you. But when you remain emotionally distant, calm, unreadable, and controlled, you project authority. You make people cautious with their words, deliberate with their actions. You control the tempo of every interaction without ever raising your voice. In a world full of emotional exhibitionists, your silence becomes power. Emotional transparency is weakness in a world of predators. Emotional opacity is protection. The less they know what you feel, the less they can use you, and the more they begin to fear you.
5. Pain as a source of strength. Machiavelli's own life was a brutal testament to the transformative power of pain. He was imprisoned, tortured, and exiled from the very city he had once served faithfully. The world stripped him of prestige, position, and power, yet it could not break him. Instead, it forged him. The weak man curses his suffering and seeks escape. The strong man studies it and extracts meaning. Machiavelli turned humiliation into clarity, rejection into philosophy, and loss into insight. He understood that pain, when faced without self-pity, becomes the purest form of self-knowledge. It forces you to confront the illusions that comfort once concealed, your dependence on approval, your hidden insecurities, your fear of being alone. Pain burns away the false layers until only truth remains, and truth, though harsh, is liberating. Most people run from pain because it threatens their illusion of control. They numb it with distractions, bury it under noise, or blame others for causing it. But Machiavelli would call that weakness because pain avoided is pain multiplied. Every attempt to escape suffering only makes it return stronger, more insistent, more controlling. The Machiavellian mind does the opposite. It faces pain directly, studies it like an enemy to be understood, and learns from it. In that process, the pain loses its sting and becomes instruction. Each wound becomes a map of wisdom. Each failure becomes a manual for resilience. You begin to realize that pain is not a punishment. It is the world's most precise feedback. It reveals what still owns you, what still breaks you, what still controls you. And by confronting it, you reclaim your power. Pain is the great purifier. It strips away illusions, exposing who you are when the world no longer claps for you, when comfort disappears, when you have nothing left to prove except to yourself. In that silence, you meet your true strength, the part of you that endures when everything else falls apart. Machiavelli would say that the world belongs to those who can suffer without self-destruction, who can turn wounds into wisdom and bitterness into clarity. Pain refines character like fire refines metal. It destroys the weak alloy of pride and emotion, leaving only what is unbreakable. That is why the Machiavellian mind does not seek pity or revenge. It studies the cause, understands the lesson, and moves forward, colder, clearer, and stronger than before. The moment you stop fearing pain, you become untouchable. The manipulator loses his power because threats no longer move you. The betrayer loses his satisfaction because your calm denies him victory. The world loses its control because suffering no longer frightens you. When pain ceases to be an enemy and becomes your instructor, every hardship turns into a form of growth. You stop being reactive and start becoming strategic. Your emotions no longer drive you, they serve you. You use them like weapons, precisely, deliberately, effectively. Machiavelli's life proved that greatness is not born in comfort, but in conflict. It is forged in exile, betrayal, and loss, and tempered in the fire of pain that no longer burns, but builds.
6. Indifference to outcomes. One of the coldest yet most liberating truths in Machiavelli's philosophy is this: act with total commitment, but detach completely from the outcome. This paradox lies at the heart of power. Most people live enslaved by results. Their mood rises with success and collapses with failure. They cling to expectations, praying that reality bends to their will. But Machiavelli understood that desperation is the death of strategy. The moment you need something to happen, you stop thinking clearly. You become emotional, reactive, and easily manipulated. You make decisions from fear of loss instead of clarity of purpose. The Machiavellian mind, however, does not chase certainty. It acts with precision, does everything in its control, and then releases the rest without attachment. He does not beg fortune for favors. He prepares himself to adapt when fortune turns. This form of indifference is not laziness. It is the highest expression of composure. When you detach from outcomes, you no longer beg reality to cooperate with your desires. You operate from a place of quiet confidence rather than anxious hope. You focus on process, not prize. This mindset gives you clarity in chaos because you are no longer blinded by what you want to happen. You see things as they are and act accordingly. The person obsessed with results will force moves, rush timing, and expose weakness. The one who is indifferent waits, observes, and moves only when advantage is certain. Machiavelli saw that power comes not from control over events, but from control over reaction. When the world can no longer emotionally destabilize you, you begin to shape it to your rhythm. A man who is indifferent to outcomes is immune to manipulation. You cannot threaten him with loss because he has already accepted it as part of life. You cannot seduce him with rewards because he does not crave validation. He acts not for approval or fear, but for precision, because it is right, because it is necessary, because it is strategic. This calm detachment confuses those ruled by emotion. They interpret your stillness as apathy, not realizing it is mastery. They try to provoke reactions and receive only silence. They try to pressure you and meet only patience. The less you react, the more they reveal themselves. And in that contrast, you gain power. The power of perspective, the power of restraint, the power of control. Indifference to outcomes does not mean indifference to effort. On the contrary, it demands total commitment, but without emotional ownership. You give your full strength to the action itself, not to the expectation of reward. You let the world do what it will, knowing that no outcome can define you. When you reach this level of mental freedom, nothing can truly disturb your focus. Success no longer inflates you, and failure no longer breaks you. You remain steady, consistent, unmoved. Like a chess player who never celebrates too soon, never despairs too early, and always sees 3 moves ahead. This is emotional detachment at its highest form. Full effort, zero attachment. To act with intensity, yet remain indifferent to result. That is the essence of Machiavellian control.
7. The discipline of silence. Machiavelli understood something that most people never grasp, that silence is not submission, but power. The loud man seeks validation. The silent man observes, analyzes, and controls. Words can betray emotion, but silence conceals it.
Every time you hold your tongue, you force others to fill the void with their own insecurities, assumptions, and mistakes. In The Prince, Machiavelli admired rulers who mastered restraint, those who spoke only when it served their purpose, never when it served their ego. Because every unnecessary word reveals something, an emotion, a weakness, an intention. The disciplined mind withholds what others carelessly display. Silence shifts the balance of control. When you remain calm and wordless while others argue or accuse, you become the immovable presence in the storm. You unsettle them with your composure. They begin to doubt themselves, to question what you're thinking, to project their own fear onto your stillness. That's the invisible power of silence. It turns uncertainty into your advantage. The discipline of silence is not just external, it's internal. It means mastering the voice in your own head. It means resisting the urge to explain yourself, to prove your worth, to win every argument. Silence is where strength gathers. It's where the mind resets, where emotion cools into clarity. The more silent you become, the more you see. You notice motives others overlook. You hear what is not said. You act when others are still reacting. To live by Machiavelli's wisdom is to speak less and perceive more. Let your actions whisper your intentions. Let your calmness unsettle the noisy. Let silence become your armor. The mark of a mind that has nothing left to prove and everything still under control. 8. The cold calm of power. At the heart of Machiavelli's teachings lies a paradox. The colder you become, the more power you gain. True power does not shout, it observes. It does not chase approval, it commands it through composure. The weak react, the powerful remain still. The weak argue, the powerful act. When you stop needing to be seen, you start being felt. Machiavelli knew that power flows to those who master their inner state, because a calm mind can see opportunities and threats long before chaos blinds the emotional. The calm man is not passive, he is precise. Every move is measured, every word intentional, every silence strategic.
This calm is not the absence of emotion, but the control of it. It's the ability to feel rage without acting rashly, to experience fear without freezing, to face insult without lowering yourself. When you can stand in front of chaos and still breathe evenly, you project a presence that others instinctively respect or fear. Machiavelli admired this composure because it separates the rulers from the ruled. The man who controls himself can control situations, outcomes, and even people because he cannot be provoked or predicted. The cold calm of power is built through discipline. It's forged in moments when you want to react but choose restraint instead, when you want to argue but choose silence, when you want to chase validation but choose solitude. Over time, your emotional impulses stop ruling you. They serve you. You become the observer, not the participant. You stop playing the game emotionally and start directing it strategically. To embody this cold calm is to reach a higher form of strength, the kind that doesn't depend on recognition or dominance, but on unshakable self-possession. The winds of emotion will always blow, but like a mountain, you remain unmoved. That is Machiavellian mastery, the stillness that commands storms, the silence that speaks louder than fury. To master the cold art of not caring is not to become heartless. It is to become free. Free from manipulation, free from emotional chaos, free from the control of others. Machiavelli's wisdom was never about cruelty for its own sake. It was about strength through clarity.
To rise above the noise of human weakness, you must learn to see emotions as instruments, to use them when needed and silence them when not. When you no longer react, the world loses its grip on you. You stop chasing fairness, recognition, or revenge. You become self-contained, calm, strategic, unbothered. That is the highest form of power, not to dominate others, but to rule yourself. If this philosophy spoke to you, if you're ready to master your emotions and live with the cold calm of power, then stay, subscribe, reflect, and begin your transformation. Remember Machiavelli's hidden lesson: control yourself, and you control everything.